So this is Staff Sergeant Carl Herbert Yarrington. When the national anthem was playing, I was thinking about him at the end when it said Land of the Brave, because that is what Carl was. This is Carl. So Carl was born on April 4th, 1920 in Ogden, Utah, to Herbert and Merle Yarrington. He was the oldest of 3 boys, and his parents really loved him. He was a very devoted son, and his brothers looked up to him a lot. And his mother had polio, and so he always helped her with whatever, and so he was extremely dependable. Growing up, Carl was extremely athletic. He was involved in American Legion with football and baseball. In Ogden High, where he went to high school, he was involved with swimming, football, and like wrestling. But he was also a leader in many senses. When he was a junior, he was a part of the student council, and then his senior year, he was the lieutenant colonel of the ROTC program at Ogden High, as well as the senior high class president. He was extremely charismatic, extremely popular, well-liked, and well-known by everybody. One of the things he really enjoyed doing while he was at Ogden High was carpentry and poetry. One of his nieces told me he built a beautiful wooden desk and a table, and she just said that they were beautiful. The family no longer has possession of them, but she really liked them. So after Carl graduated from high school, he went to Weber College for about a year, and then he dropped out. I couldn't really find anything, but he was a 5th generation railroad worker. So he worked as a machinist apprentice, and he was very, very good at his job. However, he decided to quit his job and move to San Francisco, where he worked in the Bethlehem Yard shipyard in San Francisco. And there, after the United States joined the war, he helped build ships. And this was the largest ship producing area during World War II. Carl enlisted on April 17th, 1942, and he went to Camp Roberts in California for basic training. After that, he volunteered to be a paratrooper for the 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment, and every man in that regiment volunteered on his own. It was extremely physical, but that was fine for Carl because he was extremely athletic, very good at it. So while Carl was in Fort Benning, Georgia, training with the 507th, he met Marjorie Gorman. I don't really know when they met, but she was pregnant, almost getting divorced, and so there was like a little bit of, I guess it wasn't seen as good, to be with someone like that. But Carl loved her enough, to not care about the social stigma of what it would be to marry an unwed mother. And so she gave birth in September 1942, and so Carl became a father to her son. Carl was sent overseas in November 1942, where he and the rest of the 507th arrived in the UK and trained for D-Day. Some of the training that they did, there were no planes, so they had to jump out of moving trucks because they didn't have any other trains to practice on. So Carl, as I mentioned was a leader. And this is probably seen really well in the last few hours of his life. Before he was about to go and jump, he was told he'd become a 2nd lieutenant. and he was extremely excited to become an officer. They needed an officer to make sure to be the jump master for all the other paratroopers. Since Carl was the highest ranked man, that's what he did for his stick. After dropping, they had to find each other. They were in one of the most misdropped zones out of everyone. And so, according to one of the men who was with Carl led a good amount of the men from the plane, and he told them that he wanted to find their command post as soon as possible. Sometime during the day, they were near Gorbsville, and Carl was, according to the man, was just moving dangerously, and then he was shot and he died instantly. Carl's death was extremely devastating for his parents. They loved him so much. They could not watch war movies because they thought of him. They did not like President Roosevelt because they blamed him for their beloved son's death. Carl's youngest brother, George, felt that he needed to take Carl's space, and so he would make sure, he worked in the Coast Guard, so no matter where he was, he would make sure he would take his kids to visit his parents at least twice a year, and try to be the type of son that Carl was to his parents. I think the saddest part is Carl's family never knew that he died leading his men. They thought he died when his plane got shot at, and so it's somewhat devastating. But, Carl has taught me so much. He has shown me how much bravery it takes to be a soldier and how much sacrifice it is when you're in the line of duty. And I'm so thankful for you, Staff Sergeant Yarrington. Thank you.
Thank you.